welcome to Monday Positivity. Welcome to today's episode. Today, we are going to talk about transitioning careers for highly sensitive people, and career transitions can be daunting, especially for highly sensitive individuals, but it's important for their well being. And today, we're joined by Cassie, a highly sensitive person and transition coach who emphasizes the significance of aligning values with career choices. Stay tuned as Cassie shares valuable insights and details about her coaching services. And she also talks about the importance of finding your values if you really want to transition and you want to find the right career. So, without further ado, let's get started. And if you want to connect with her and you want to avail of her services, I have shared all her program details, her website, and all the ways to connect with her in the description below this video. So, yeah, let's dive in. Okay, so let's start with your journey first. Uh, Share your journey as a highly sensitive person and how it impacted your career choices.
Sure. Oh man. Well, as a highly sensitive person, and then I noticed a lot of overlap with some research that I've done in multi-passionate type people who have lots of interests and have a hard time choosing. And I found that there was some overlap in some of the highly sensitive areas. And so, yeah, my career path, as far as highly sensitive specifically, found myself feeling pushed down traditional paths and expectations. And it just never felt right to me. And it affected how, I didn't recognize it when I was in the workplace. Um, I found myself not feeling like myself because I was overstimulated and sensitive to sound. I was sensitive to other people's emotions. A bit of time to really focus and pay attention to how I was, what I needed, and learning how to communicate. So it's just educating myself. And I find that the terms of highly sensitive person, I find it as an empowering term. It's so you can learn about it and learn how it applies to you, and then learn the tools that you specifically need to help yourself be successful.
Right.
Yeah, so I switched jobs often because I was sensitive to the toxic cultures. And so when they just didn't line up with my values as a person in the work, like, what values I wanted in a workplace, I walked away. I had the ability to say, well, this isn't going well. And yeah, and so I took a lot. And then after I left my last job, I had to take a really deep look into what it was I needed. And I even tried out a couple part-time jobs to see if I liked those fields, because my background, I have a lot of varying fields. Um, and then I came across coaching and helping people through those transitions of changing jobs, moving, all that sort of thing. And I fell in love with it. And so now I get to create my own workplace. So it's
Right.
really nice.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, like you had to leave that toxic culture, right?
Mhm.
And at some point, maybe you had to voice also your concerns and your needs. And I think highly sensitive people find it really hard to do that, right?
Mhm.
So, and that leads me to my next question about boundaries, because I think that's a big concept. Usually, we are not able to establish boundaries as highly sensitive people in personal and professional lives. So tell me about that. Like, how did you navigate the process of establishing boundaries in your career?
Absolutely. Boundaries were hard for me. As you know, as a highly sensitive person, at first it was hard for me to even recognize that I needed boundaries, and I didn't know what boundaries looked like for me. So as far as boundaries go, the first thing you need to, I think you could do is pay attention to what, if you're feeling frustrated in a moment, you pay attention to what's happening, who you're surrounded by, and you just pay attention to what it is. So for instance, I guess a better example to be more specific, a coworker is lying to you and you're very frustrated. Why did they say they sent me that document and they never sent it, or they told me to do this project and they didn't do it in this specific way? They didn't, and you pay attention to, okay, I'm frustrated because this person said they told me something and they didn't. So a value that I have is honesty.
Because I think you are actually touching upon a very good point. It's so important to understand your values first. That helps you, maintain boundaries. Yeah,
Absolutely. Once you know what you need, then you can communicate what you need. And,
right.
and then also knowing your job job in description.
Right.
What are the job duties? What are the hours that I, agreed to? What am I or am I not willing to speak about at work? Because that's a big one for me, that I didn't realize that I even needed to put boundaries on what I talked about, what I wanted to partake in a conversation. And so, one major one that popped up for me a lot is people deciding to speak about other people, gossiping. And it really made me uncomfortable to do that. And I had to, and I didn't find that I needed to make a big deal about it. I stepped away. That's all. That's a boundary. You just step away. You don't have to make a big deal about it if you didn't, and even if you did want to say, hey, I don't feel comfortable with this. Can we change the subject? That's also great. So it's kind of just depends on the person, what your boundaries are and how you want to communicate them.
Right. Yeah, yeah. And I think gossip was also like a big deal for me as well. And like everybody's, talking in groups and all that, and you are feeling exhausted. So
Mhm.
you would step away, and then at the end of the day, I'll think like maybe I'm not I'm not uh, the right fit for the job.
Mhm.
But I think highly sensitive people also need to realize that sometimes even the jobs are not the right fit for you because we
Mhm.
always, think back to ourselves. Um, and you also talked about noise at workplace, right? So you were sensitive to noise and all. So tell me about that also, like your overstimulation in noisy workplaces.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, one thing that was a savior for me was I don't know, the noise reducing earplugs.
Yeah,
You can hear, but it just makes it a little bit quieter.
right. I have a whole set of it.
You do great. I even wear them with my 1-year old.
Okay.
Um, but I think that was a major game changer. And yeah, just stepping away and also getting comfortable with needing that time, or even wanting that time. Doesn't mean you're antisocial. It just means that you just need a little bit of space. And there's even, on some meditation apps, there's even like 1 minute guided meditations for calm, kind of bringing yourself back grounded, calming down, and just taking a moment for yourself. And I think that is very valuable. And some people can't step away. For instance, I used to be a preschool teacher, and you can't always step away. And
Yeah.
so I made a game of it, and I said, okay, we're going to eat lunch I say in the dark, but I had a really big window. So it was lit. We weren't literally in the dark. I just turned off the light, and it was so mellow.
Right.
So just
Okay.
finding your own way in in what you need, just again paying attention to what it is that you need, and how can you make that achievable. And I think on occasion you can even ask your workplace. It just depends on the situation, but you ask your workplace um, how they can support you in that. If they're a good workplace, they're going to do that for you. And yeah.
Right. Yeah. And also, as someone who loves change, how do you strike a balance between, seeking new adventures and maintaining stability in your career?
Absolutely. Yes. I realized when I decided to make changes was usually because my values weren't aligned in some capacity. So that took a little bit of shifting and changing. But yeah, keeping a job is important. And if you are someone who wants and likes change, and you want to keep your job, you can kind of what I tended to do was I would take on I would ask to take on extra projects, or I noticed something that needed to be done. So it was kind of something, a change of pace for me, but I still kept my job.
Like
um,
that.
yeah, yeah. So it depends on your work situation, but I mean, not many workplaces are going to say, no, you can't do extra work. But that's only, if I had the mental capacity for it at that time. I tried to balance it. But usually if I was seeking change, I needed something to do.
Right. And speaking of mental capacity,
Mhm.
you also mentioned feeling catastrophically depleted after work. And for me also, like that was a pattern, but I didn't recognize it. And my last job, like my last 9 to 5 job, that
Mhm.
was like 6, sorry, not 9, 5, 6 years ago. That made me realize, like, because it was like I was completely exhausted and I had to take like 1 week off. So,
Mhm.
how did you recognize the pattern, and what strategies have you employed to recover and recharge?
Yes. Well, first was recognizing what it was. I just, I was a very busy person, or am a busy person, and I didn't even, once I actually acknowledged that I was, as I call it, catastrophically depleted, once I put a word to it, I was like, wow, that sounds intense, but that's how I feel. And so it kind of was validating to just recognize it, and recognize that I needed to take care of it. So yeah, the way I recognize it, I felt completely shut down. I had a shorter temper. I was on edge. I was an introvert trying to force myself to be an extrovert. And I can do that in small doses, but not all day.
Yeah.
Um, and I just was ultimately just not myself. And how I handled it, in which you said you took a week off. That's what you needed. And that's great that you were able to acknowledge that. And then also, some people, take a day, take a week. Um, Myself, I would sometimes take days off. How I handled it was taking those steps with the boundaries, and working on the overstimulation type stuff, like I mentioned earlier. And also once at least for me, when I got home, I just needed, I set a timer for myself, or sometimes I didn't set a timer, and I just needed to be in a quiet, dark room, 10 minutes. That's all I wanted.
Yeah.
No one talked to me, no one bug me. So I could recharge. And yeah, I mean, gosh, and then it just depended on the day, because some days I'd want to come home, turn on a bad reality TV show, or listen to my 90s alternative punk station and clean my house. Other days, I I would just watch the TV show, or I would watch it in color. Coloring is great.
Yeah.
It sounds so silly, but it's just such a stress reliever.
Right. Yeah. And like you said that you were an introvert. I mean, like you still are, but
Mhm.
maybe at that time you were trying to be an extrovert. And I think that comes from, just wanting to be accepted in society because everybody wants you to be an extrovert and all. And many people struggle with that, societal expectations, specifically highly sensitive people. So how do you help individuals overcome, external pressures and silence sort of their inner critique?
Absolutely. That takes practice. Um, I'd say for how I approach things, well, first off, I give my clients space to share without judgment. Like I don't have any preconceived anything. I kind of get into this really cool Zen coaching mode where I don't even have any, I'm only focusing on what they're saying. I don't have thoughts. I don't have my judgment cloud what we talk about in our sessions. And I'm basically sharing back to them what they said to me and what kind of stuck out. And I'm sharing inconsistencies that I noticed. So that's first what I do, but also, which then leads into them bringing more awareness about who they are and what they need and how to communicate it. And I just encourage them, you know, my two main things that I say is what's one thing you can do today to make a step in what change you want to make. And then the other one, which is my favorite, is how can you make it fun?
Yeah.
So I'm big about like, if I don't, I don't like, I use it in my business as well. If I don't like something, how can I make this fun? So that's what I tend to do with my clients.
Okay, right. And I will also put the link to your website in the description. So if anybody wants to reach out to you, they can do that. And also, I wanted to ask you how you encourage individuals to embrace their uniqueness
Mhm.
and approach, their career transitions. Could you talk about that also a bit? Like, how do you encourage them to, yeah, to make it easier for them? Like, if they have to transition the career or embrace their uniqueness. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say also, again, it's just paying attention to your values. And even if that means looking up words like value words, like what are my values? Like you can even, do a quick search online and pick out things that stick out to you, things that you realize are important to you. Um, and then also recognizing what I find interesting in career transitions is, and this is myself included, when you're working for places and they say, um, oh, you're really good at this, so you should do this. And then you start to subconsciously intake that, and you then are like, well, I'm good at this, so I should do it. You might hate what you're good at.
Right.
And like with my multi-passionate people I work with, there's lots of things that you can do. And even if you aren't great at a particular thing, maybe your second good, good what you're good at. And like number one you hate, number two you like, but you're not as good as the number one spot. and you just practice and you learn and you figure it out. But yeah, what you're good at is not always the same as what you enjoy doing. And I think that's um, really helpful to hear because yeah, we're just socialized to have that one true calling, and some people have lots of callings.
Right. Yeah. I really love that because exactly like if somebody says, it just sinks in that, okay, yes, I'm good at it. So I should be good at it, if even if I don't like it.
Oh yes.
Um, and
I was a manager for a really long time, and I loved working with my team, and I also really disliked making people do things they didn't want to do. So I was like, well, that's not for me then.
right. Okay. And also talk about pushing comfort zones for change because I think that is also a bit scary for highly sensitive people.
Hmm.
And I think it is also needed sometimes if you want to, climb that career ladder. So yeah,
Yeah, I I am a strong believer in gentle, intentional, small steps. Just what's one thing you can do today? Um, and and you still want to honor your it's kind of an interesting balance. You want to honor your comfort zones, but yeah, like you said, it's also good to kind of push them a little bit. And you can push them a little bit, you can push them a lot, and you're like, yeah, no, that didn't work. And you can pull it back, and try in a different different way. There's so many paths that you can take. And then also a huge thing is giving yourself grace as you learn. Because once you get into the habit of being down on yourself, it's kind of hard to pull yourself back into trying. And I mean, that's what life's about, is just trying, try to make make the next that was on a Frozen movie, next right choice or
yeah,
something. Or not, and it doesn't even have to be right. I like the word better, next better choice.
yeah,
Um, what's right is different for everyone. And it's just what's the better choice today, right now, in this moment.
right. Yeah, I love that. And also, what steps can highly sensitive individuals take to create more supportive work environment that aligns with their needs and also
Yeah,
helps them thrive?
absolutely. To again, it's educating yourself on yourself,
Right,
learning what you are, what you need, and then learning how to share that with your workplace, your team. Um, so you can be successful. And if it's your team, everyone's meant to be successful. And hopefully they honor that. Um, and the educating part, it's listening to podcasts like this. You're learning about being a highly sensitive person, and that's major. Um, and so if you are in a workplace already, so like I said, you can ask them now, and like, what's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to say no, and it stays the same. At least you could try.
right,
And then also, if you're job seeking, then you know what those values are, and then you form questions. It's like at the end of the interview, do you have any questions for us? And you can have some questions ready. Say yes, say no, and then at least and then you can make that informed decision with that information.
right. And also, I think try to find like-minded individuals because if sometimes you feel like nobody will understand this and that, but I think if you try, you will find, ask, and you shall
That's a
receive.
very good point, actually, because yeah, and when you share, the things that you're seeking, it's possible someone is sitting across from you needing and wanting the same things, and then it kind of creates a really beautiful workplace. Is that you share your vulnerability, and other people also feel comfortable to do the same. And I think that just makes us all more human,
Right,
and we're just all doing the best we can.
right. Yeah. Yes, you mentioned you're also an introverted empath.
Mhm.
So tell me about that. How has it sort of influenced your professional growth? And how do you leverage this trait to connect with others in your coaching services?
I actually have a story I was thinking about sharing on this front. So, a time that my professional growth was impacted by my empathy. It's kind of a dramatic, not it's it's a kind of extreme story, but I think it shows. I think this is common in workplaces. So I had just been put on an advisory board for my workplace to represent my department in a larger company. And my dad actually unexpectedly ended up in the hospital and was passing away. I knew that I needed to be with my family. And my boss at the time, about every other day, was calling me, hey, when you coming back? You're putting a lot of people out. You're making inconvenient for others. And so my empathy was being used against me, and some other manipulations along the way. And it almost worked. I almost came back, and I'm really glad that I held my ground. Um, because I got to be there with my family, and I needed that also. It was for my family and it was for myself. I needed that time. And I came back to work and I spoke to my coworkers, and none of them said they were inconvenienced. They all supported me. They all understood. And yeah, and so it was just interesting to have that used against me. And I actually saw a pretty bright future with that company. And about 2 weeks later, because of how I was treated, I actually ended up leaving that job. I put in my notice and I moved on, which was really hard for me. But I found it kind of wonderful also. I felt very good about that decision. It felt very right. So like kind of getting back in touch with that, like, internal value or internal um, feeling, the gut feeling. It kind of made me feel like I was, when you do something and you just feel relief and you feel
Yeah.
better. And so I am glad that I was able to take that time for myself um, and step away. So that's more on the professional growth. But I also find my empathy now that I've kind of keyed more into it and learned more about my own values and everything like that. I find my empathy like a really cool superpower.
Right.
And then that also came in hand with boundaries that I needed to put in place. So yeah, and learning what is, as I was told once, is that is theirs, this is mine. And so if someone's feeling a certain way, it stays with them. It's for them to handle, and then you keep what you need for yourself,
Right.
your own on your own self, and leave what other people think about you is none of your business.
Right. And I think that's actually very important, specifically for empaths, because they, tend to take on others' emotions as well.
Definitely.
Any advice, like if you have to give one piece of advice to a highly sensitive individual who is maybe struggling in their career, and they are just thinking like, what shall I do? What should be their first step to take?
Yeah, I think it's just what's something you can do today to make your situation a little bit better, whether that's big or small, just a step.
Right.
Mhm.
And also, like you said, just be aware of your values. I think that was beautifully said. Like if you are aware of your values, you can easily, navigate the path. And
Absolutely.
it was lovely talking to you. Thank you for making time for this. And I was so looking forward to it.
Yeah,
And
me too.
I
Thank
hope,
you for making time. We have a bit of a time difference.
yeah, yes. But I'm a morning person, so I'm an early bird. So it's all good.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
I appreciate you inviting me to your space and your podcast, and this was really lovely. And I'm glad that we can have conversations like this because they're very important.
Yeah, yes.